Howdy howdy, Jolly Green here, your #1 guide to enjoying your through hike. This is going to be part 2 of the 3 P's of a successful through hike. Play, power, and people. Today is all about power. Now that might seem like a scary term, but it's more about just having control over the process that you're taking. This is really how it is that you're going to hike your own hike, rather than trying to live off of other people's rules. So follow me as I can tell you exactly how to establish your own sense of control and power to make this hike your own. Follow me. Now, power is a very scary term, and it's something that Ali Abdaal in Feel Good Productivity talks about not as power over others or the way to influence people, but the control that you have over your own thought process and the journey that you're making. So these key concepts can be broken down into 3 categories. If you can't tell yet, I really like 3s. A little autistic brain. So power and control over your own process and through hike can be broken down into 3 basic categories. And that's going to be confidence, freedom, and reframing. Let's begin at the beginning with confidence. You see, confidence is going to be the knowledge in your own skills and whether or not that you're actually prepared to do a long distance hike like the Appalachian Trail. Now, confidence can come in many different shapes and sizes, and it's really going to depend on the individual of, ooh, look at that. A spider is attached to my camera. What's up, guy? Oop. Sorry about that. I destroyed his web. Confidence is just the tools and skills that you give yourself to make sure that you're actually prepared for the journey ahead. Now, whether or not this is you doing a shakedown hike so that you know and understand all of your equipment, or making sure that you have all of the funding and finances that you need, or that you're in the proper physical shape that you think that you're going to need for this, whatever is going to make you feel confident is going to be a very personal question. But what's going to make you feel confident is going to be a very personal question. But there are ways while you're on trail to also trick yourself into confidence. And that is with positive self-talk. I know I'm going to sound crazy when I say this, but when I was hiking the Appalachian Trail, I was in a really depressed place. I was not enjoying where my life was. I did not have a goal or a dream with my life. I was working hourly. I hadn't seen a comma in my bank account for many years. And I was going through a really tough breakup at the time and didn't really have a direction for my life. So I was not in the best place. However, that brings us to our next key concept of confidence, which is priming. You see, Daniel Kahneman in the book Thinking Fast and Slow shows that humans can be primed to certain emotional states by just being exposed to similar words, where people even exposed to words for a quarter of a second, such as old or senile, would be shown to walk slower. Now, with this, how does that help me in my confidence? I was in a highly depressed place in my life, but I got the trail name Jolly Green Giant. I got that because I got really excited about some dehydrated vegetables that my family was sending me, and literally every piece of my equipment was green. If you're looking for gear review here, just know that I shopped for is it green first, because I knew that that would make me happy before I looked at any of the specs. So I had green shirt, green pants, and green backpack. With all of this combined, I got the name Jolly Green Giant, which eventually got shortened to Jolly Green. I can't tell you the transformative power that it was had, where literally people would look at me every day and say Jolly Green. However, even if you don't get a literal synonym for being happy in your trail name, don't let that prevent you. For there was another trick that I learned that I had been using for years that absolutely helped me hike more miles in a day than I ever could have thought. And sharing this with other thru hikers, they've told me that they used it along the trail several times just to also get themselves motivated for a little bit longer. And this is the concept of the key phrase. You see, you can attach different motivations to different phrases in your brain. And by doing this, you are going to be able to start the habit of getting up and doing more of what it is that you're trying to do. So my phrase that I loved and helped me get through more exhaustion than I could even possibly begin to remember was the phrase,
motivation activate.
By using this, I was able to get up off of my butt while I was just sitting and being comfortable, staying in a shelter and unmotivated to keep hiking more miles in the day. But by screaming the phrase,
motivation activate,
I started the loop in my brain that told me that it was time to restart hiking again. And with that, I was able to kickstart my own motivation without any kind of external motivation. I was able to just jumpstart it myself. Now that we have the concept of confidence down, it's time to get to one of my favorite parts, freedom. Freedom is the idea that this is hiking your own hike. And this concept is going to follow very closely with my other video, how to hike your own hike, 4 questions to ask yourself. So check that out whenever you're done with this video, or right now, I don't care. Whatever's most helpful to you. You've got the freedom to do it. Freedom comes from the idea and the concept that you are actually going to hike your own hike. In this, I'm reminded of a situation where a member of my tramily was hiking a very different hike than I was. You see, Mariposa was someone that I admire greatly, but she was dedicated to bringing her pack on every mile of the Appalachian Trail. So there was one day that we decided to go slack packing. I was in Rutland, Vermont, where I had the opportunity to hike southbound for the first time and slack pack for the first time. I hadn't done it the entire trail. And in this one day, I was able to break every single rule that I had. And it ended up being one of the best days that I had. I had slack packed, I had gone southbound, and for the very last 2 miles of the day, I found someone that had an ATV that offered to give me and my friend Dozer a ride on his ATV and a ride back into town in his truck. So, of course, we took the opportunity, sat in his ATV, went for a ride, and picked blackberries the entire time. That was the freedom that I had. Whereas Mariposa was also hiking her own hike and doing it beautifully as she took her pack all the way up Mount Killington and all the way back down and did that entire southbound trail with us. She didn't have a rule against going southbound, but she did have a rule against not bringing her pack. And with that, she was a clear indication of how we both could be enjoying our day and have absolute freedom on our own hike while still being able to establish what it was that we wanted. She wanted to prove herself and show that she could while carrying her backpack as a companion, and I just wanted to lie, steal, and cheat my way through every single mile that I could. Freedom can take many shapes, and it requires a little bit of curiosity, like we had in our first episode of this mini-series in Play. If you're embracing curiosity, then you can have the freedom to start making things into your own hike. I had a lot of fun just treating every different idea that I had with what is called the shonen method, or the beginner's mindset in Ali Abdaal's book, Feel Good Productivity. What this means is treat every idea like you're an absolute beginner. See, if you've been hiking many years like I had, I was an Eagle Scout, I went to Philmont, and I had already had rules that I'd done hiking with, but by willing to question those and try new things, I was able to find things that I truly enjoyed, such as I taking the advice of my good friend Wizard Spoon, almost died, That would have been funny. Caught that on camera. My good friend Wizard Spoon gave me a fantastic piece of advice that I now try to build my life around. You see, he didn't know it at the time, but he was actually a key concept in helping me discover what Dr. Matthew Walker describes as the ideal sleep schedule. Every person has their own circadian rhythm, and there's not really a rule for what people's are. But by giving myself the opportunity, and rather than hiking at 5 a.m. just to get more miles in the day, I decided to shut off my alarm and just let my body see what it was going to need every day. And that's when I learned that I actually have a very natural sleep pattern for waking up at 7:30 in the morning and taking a nice 2 o'clock nappy nap for 2 hours, and then being able to hike all the way until 10 o'clock. And on to our last topic for this. How to establish power into your life comes from the words of Viktor E. Frankl. Between stimulus and response is free will. The last freedom that a human has is his ability to choose his own attitude at any given situation.
Why did you get this nice cap? It's clever, just like you. Huh?
I'm going to tell two very personal stories. One from hiking and one from smoking. You see, while I was hiking the Appalachian Trail, I had a very clear memory of changing everything that I was doing and saying from the idea of I have to do this to I get to do this. And I know it can seem weird while we're out here having the adventure of a lifetime and going and playing in the woods, even having that concept of I have to do things. But whenever you're tired and exhausted and you see that uphill struggle is going to be your next 5 miles and you've already done 10 miles today, it can be really easy to say to yourself, I have to do this. But by switching to the simple process of get to, you can start understanding and seeing a lot more opportunities for fun in your life. I was going up Mount Mahoosuc, and it was a view that many people in my family were excited for. However, on the day that we went, it was absolutely cloud covered. You could barely see 30 feet in front of you, let alone any kind of view. So while going up Mount Mahoosuc and not being able to see 30 feet in front of me, I remember people in my family were talking about how disappointed they were that they were going to be missing this fantastic view. But through a simple concept of reframing, I was able to look at the situation and say, thousands of people have hiked up this mountain and seen this view, but we get to be the only people in this world that are going to see the inside of this cloud. And just by switching that mindset into what we get to experience now, ended up making that whole mountain trip much more enjoyable for everyone, as we all took the time to enjoy the fact that we were going to be the only ones to see the inside of that cloud. However, this method can work for more than just hiking. You see, this was one of the key aspects that helped me become a happy non-smoker. So it was a little over 2 years of me trying to quit cigarettes. When I was home at night and I made a rule for myself, I was starting my next quit attempt, and I was angry. I was on day 3. I was going through the maximum number of withdrawals that I could. It was 3 a.m. I had insomnia and I had to work the next day. But I had established one rule for myself. No matter what withdrawal symptoms I was feeling, I had to look at it positively. I had to think about what was the good in every withdrawal symptom. And so while I was sitting there in bed, very much desperately trying to sleep and having not slept in 3 days, a thought occurred to me. Look at how much energy I have if my body's not fighting off poison. And by simply reframing every single withdrawal symptom into that light, I quickly realized that I could make the process of overcoming nicotine withdrawal into an enjoyable process just by reframing it into a fun thing. Now, in this episode, we've talked about the power of confidence, freedom, and reframing, and how it can help you feel powerful in your long distance through hike. And by using these tools, you can make any situation a truly enjoyable one. Remember, if you're having a hard time, ask yourself 3 questions. What is my side quest? What would this look like if it were fun? And what's the positive spin here? And by doing that, you can trick your brain into enjoying anything, any hardship that you're experiencing. And remember, you get to do this through hike. You don't have to. I love you. Bye.